In this lesson, we're going to region the side of our car and loft to make a three-dimensional object. So first thing we'll do is go ahead and open up our layers, and let's get from the side view, and we are going to select each of the line items that we've made. So what we'll do is go ahead and type in region, and then we'll go ahead and select everything here. And if all the lines are put together, you will see a solid object. So in the view, we want to make sure that we're seeing this in conceptual or a shaded view. And then go ahead and look at it in 3 dimensions. Now the reason why this worked, if you notice, all the lines were on one plane. So if you have objects that are not on the same plane, it doesn't work. And you don't need to move this, but I'm just moving this so I can get an idea of what it would look like. You're probably actually better to move the wheel than the side of the vehicle. But you want to make sure that you know what the right side and left side of the vehicle is in relationship to the tire and the wheel. Alright, so we want to make sure that the midpoint is selected. What we're going to do is we're going to make the width of this vehicle. So I'm going to draw a line, and it's going to snap near the rear of the car. And in this case, I'm going to type in 60 inches. Now you can always scale the wheels in the vehicle to make it fit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that side of the car that I regioned, and I'm just going to simply hit the copy. And if you notice, every time I select an area where it's going to go, it'll snap to it. And so the first thing it asked me to do was to select where I wanted to copy it from, and then it simply just pastes on there. So I have a little couple extra here. You really only need one extra in this case, but you should see 3. The most important thing is you see 3 of those objects, and they should be in a pancake. So they must be in a separate point along the axis. And then what we're going to do, it's really important that we're going to scale the center of the cars that have been regioned. And I'm going to select it from that base point, and I'll go ahead and press enter, and I'm going to scale it 1.1, right? So it's a little over 100%. And you really don't want to get too much more. That might actually be a little bit too much, but you'll notice that it's bigger than the objects on the left and the right of it. Make sure you're looking at this 3-dimensionally, otherwise this all won't work. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explode, and so I'm going to unregion these objects. And so there are icons in the ribbon you can use, but you can go ahead and just type in explode, and that frees everything of its parameters here. So now they're back to the individual lines. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to make a single object out of all 3 of these lofted objects in these points. So what I do is I type in loft, and I select in sequence the items that I want to see. So I press loft and I hit enter 3 times. And the first 2 are the loft. The third one actually just starts the entire sequence of the loft again. So you type in loft and then enter 3 times, and it'll go ahead. The first 2 will do the loft, and then the third time you hit enter, it just will redo the loft command, or whatever the previous command was. And in this case, it's a loft. So I have this. Now, you don't need to do this right now, but I'm just showing you with a glass, that window, that's why I wanted that to be one piece, because that is going to be the glass. In the rear, this is also going to be the glass. And I'll press enter 2 times. And if I want to continue on, I just press 3, but 2 times. So let's go ahead and make that glass. So I select the object, which is the rear window. And then in the layer command, you just click onto the glass, and it should just make a glass. Now the thing is, then we obviously want to select off the glass as we start the new one. Otherwise, the rear of this car will be glass. But let's go ahead and type in loft again, and let's go ahead and select the rear of the car. Now remember, so if it's the hood, there's 3 of the hood. If it's the back trunk, 3 of the back trunk in sequence from outside to the middle and to the other side. And this should actually go fairly quickly for you as you start this. You just want to be looking, and I'm going to use the orbit as a great tool to just be able to rotate around and look at this. And then I'll go ahead and type in loft again and press enter. Select the objects and then press enter 3 times. And you want to inspect it as you go along here. All right, so making sure this is all in the same layer. And then I'm just going to systematically go through this and complete this portion of the project. So loft 3 times, select the objects, and keep going around. So select loft, press enter, select the 3, and then hit enter 3 times after you're done. So again, you're going to need to be rotating around this object so you get a good vantage point of this. So one of the things we don't necessarily want to do is we don't want to loft, for example, those wheel wells. If you look at a traditional automobile, those aren't generally going through the entire car. But I do want to do the part of the undercarriage. And looking at, this is that back of the wing. So the nice thing is the object becomes much more supple. If we had done an extrusion on this, it would just be a straight line. So the loft command, and you might want to play around with it as you go along, because it does give you different types of options. So I'm just simply scrolling in with my mouse as I do this. And these 2 vehicles are in my way, 2 sides. And I'm just about done with this portion. I notice the front end is a little big, this bumper, and that's probably because that's where I selected when I selected the portion where I copied was more to the rear, but typically the front has a little bit more bow than the rear of the car. Okay. All right, so inspect it over, make sure that the vehicle has been regioned. And now what we want to do is we're going to transition here to the side of the car after we'll get this last little piece here. Goes very quickly. All right, so let's get back to our view here. Go to the right view. All right, now you can see it's looking more three-dimensional. All right, so there's a couple things we're going to need to do here. So let's first of all copy this wheel. So I type in copy, and I want to select it in that center of that wheel well. And if you notice as I move it, if the settings are done correctly, you'll see a line that it moves across, just straight across. You can also, if that's not working, with the wheel wells, it'll show you the center of it, but it's usually easiest to just go straight across. That way it doesn't snap to inadvertently. All right, so we can see it's not exactly where we wanted. And I'll just simply type in move, go from the bottom left. If you go from the bottom left up, it'll select the pieces, the components that you haven't quite hit. Right, so I go from the bottom up, press enter, and then I can move it in. And I have to be very careful with a snap line because I don't want to be snapping this to an area where I don't want it to be. All right, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so inspect the car. It should be three-dimensional, and we've finished lofting the vehicle. And we're going to get back to the right view here at the end. And let's go ahead and move this aside. We'll snap it, and we'll just finish building this. And you know what? I'm not going to use this last piece here. It'll probably be easier to go ahead and just do the work that I need for the windows and then copy it over. So this is a good place to stop for this lesson.